Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Happy you've tuned in today. Holly, let's go to the hotline and bring in our guest for this week.
Jaret Daniels is a curator at the Florida Museum of Natural History's McGuire Center for Lepidoptera and Biodiversity and professor at the Department of Entomology and Nematology at the University of Florida. He is the author of many books, including a number of regional field guides for native plant gardening for birds, bees, and butterflies. Welcome to the program, Jaret.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, we thank you for taking time out of your day to not only educate Holly and myself, but all of our listeners.
It's my pleasure.
Excellent. So for those who may not know, what is an entomologist, and more specifically, Lepidoptera, and can you explain the work you do?
Sure. So an entomologist is a person who studies insects, and I am an entomologist, but more specifically, I work on Lepidoptera, which are butterflies and moths. And much of my work deals with insect conservation. So my lab works on some of the rarest of the rare at-risk butterfly species in North America. And we also do a lot of work with native insect pollinators, particularly trying to understand more about their biology, kind of developing best practices for management, and ultimately developing resources and increase science so we understand how to ensure that these really valuable organisms remain on this planet for generations to come.
In that study, has there been have you had the aha moments where wouldn't have expected that, really learned something there today? I'm sure you've had a lot of those.
Yeah, most definitely. That's the wonderful thing about working with insects is, they're so abundant and diverse, and they're actually, for a lot of species, they're very understudied. So for many of the really rare organisms we work with, I mean, literally every time you're with them in the field or you are working on them in the lab, you're finding out something new that nobody else has seen or, worked out about them. So you kind of have those aha moments, a lot. And that's what really kind of drives me, because that's the fun part of science. That's why I became an entomologist and a researcher, is to, find new things out, and working with insects makes it really easy.
Well, as we just have closed out the month of May, many people participated in No Mow May. First of all, for people who are not familiar with that, what is it? And two, even though May's over, can we still leave part of the lawn native and not mow it, or are there some harmful negativities towards doing that?
Yeah, so No Mow May was a campaign that was actually started in the United Kingdom, and it's a really simple, easy movement that really encourages people early in the year to reduce or eliminate mowing. And across the U.S., lawns make up about 2% of the entire land area. So it's a lot of area that's just lawn, which has very limited value for wildlife. And so the idea behind No Mow May is just, let your lawn grow up, let the weeds and other kind of natural wildflowers that would occur in your lawn, let them come up and bloom and provide resources for a lot of the early season pollinators at a time when there aren't a lot of resources across the landscape. So it's just an opportunity to do a really simple, easy thing to benefit pollinators. And in reality, it benefits all of us, because, it's a lot of energy to go out and mow your lawn. You're using fuel for your mower, most likely, releasing carbon. So it's just a simple, easy thing to get done. And you'll be amazed at what insects you will see. And there's actually been a lot of research that even really simple things like reducing mowing have very significant effects on increasing the abundance and diversity of insects and pollinators, particularly in urban and suburban landscapes. So it's a really wonderful thing just to do. And it's something, you can do, any time of the year. It's just early season as an opportunity to get kind of people starting in the growing season to start off a little bit more slowly and kind of ease into the general landscape maintenance. But really, anytime you can reduce the mowing just a little bit, you're going to see some benefit by having those other sort of blooming plants appear in your landscape.
Well, and we see this, and you've probably seen this in an urban setting. If Jim down the street's mowing, I got to mow too, because it's kind of a chain reaction. Everybody does it, whether it needs it or not.
Exactly. And, if you drive along roadways too, you see the areas that are not mown for a little while, and really the diversity of wonderful wildflowers and other plants that occur in those spaces. And those are increasingly important for, maintaining insect biodiversity in increasingly developed areas like urban and suburban landscapes. So it's really important. Little steps can make really profound differences.
Fantastic. So you have a number of guides, books, etc., including 5 regional field guides for native plant gardening for birds, bees, and butterflies, and one just came out. Why don't you talk about these guides and why our listeners should pick one up for their area?
Sure. So this is, as you mentioned, it's a series. So I have 5. The one that comes out in May is for the lower Midwest, and I also have a quick guide to caterpillars of North America, which highlights about 90 different common species across the U.S. and southern Canada. And these guides were really a lot of fun to put together. And for me as an entomologist, you can publish a scientific paper and have pretty limited effect on that with only, a small number of researchers reading it. But trying to get something out to the broader public is really a way of moving the needle. And we need resources to just understand that, simple changes in our landscape of diversifying our landscape, including more native plants, can really have significant benefits for not only, sustaining wildlife and pollinators included, but really connecting people to nature and allowing them an opportunity to explore their own landscape and really see the fascinating and remarkable organisms that visit their yards and neighborhoods all the time. And so these guides are just kind of a simple tool to cover common available native plants and maybe some that are not quite as common, and some simple kind of tricks of the trade just to get people started. So they're kind of that primer that gives them all the resources they need. They can use it as a guide for planting their yard. They can take it to a nursery. It's just introducing them to hopefully a whole new world of landscaping and gardening.
Well, you use the word native plants. Now, if people can't grow a garden or grow native plants, what are some ways in which they can help the sustainability and conservation of pollinators if they can't do the garden thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will say first and foremost that you don't need a large space to garden. So even a patio with a few container plantings can have an impact. This does not need to encompass acres of land. So small changes, small little contributions like that put resources back and available to pollinators can be really important. If you don't have even that opportunity, then I would suggest becoming more involved with your community, looking at other areas to contribute in urban green space. I'm sure there are probably community gardens, other planting projects in and around your area, restoration projects at local parks, and other locations within and around where you live. Even just simply reducing the outdoor lighting around your apartment or your home can have profound effects on nocturnal insects. So, it doesn't need to be big and expansive, but it's sort of the collective small changes that we all make that can have really significant benefits. And probably the best thing people can do is just get interested, go outside, explore natural areas around where you live, start learning about these wonderful organisms, connect your family and friends to the great outdoors. That's how we all learned about these wonderful insects and birds and wildflowers, and that just opens a whole new world of discovery to people.
Fantastic. So we often hear about the pollinators not doing well, the decline. In all of your research, do you find things are optimistic, or how are things looking?
Well, certainly there is some doom and gloom out there, but I'm a perpetual optimist, and I wouldn't be in the field of insect conservation if I thought otherwise. And I think there's a lot of evidence to bring to bear on that. I mean, we talked about no mow May. There's a lot of evidence in the scientific literature that those small changes, have pretty profound effects, and it doesn't take a lot to make impact. And certainly we've seen from the research that my lab has done, even with some of the rarest of the rare, that we can move the needle. We can bring species back from the brink. We can, do restoration projects and kind of restore these natural systems. We can learn more critical information about individual species that enable us more kind of planning and strategic power to help them. And ultimately, we can kind of get more people interested in doing that in and around where they live. And I think, it is, conservation is not an individual activity. It's a collective. And so the more people we can get interested and to know about these insects, to discover them and understand even simple ways that they can contribute, that will all have significant downstream impact. And, we know that natural land is disappearing, but there's also really good evidence that urban spaces, urban green space, and landscapes in and around where we live, our backyards, if we connect those spaces, it can maintain a lot of diversity. So certainly there's a lot of negativity, but there's a lot of reason for hope as well.
Well, and if you surveyed 100 people, most of them would say a pollinator is a bee, but there's all different types of insects and birds that help pollinate as well. So it's not just the bees are having issues, but other insects that pollinate also are having issues as well.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, so insects pollinating insects encompass everything from butterflies, flies, beetles, moths, in addition to bees. So, and that list continues as well. So there's a lot of wonderful insects. And then you mentioned birds. Certainly within the U.S., there are hummingbirds that visit flowers and move pollen from one blossom to another. So I think the important thing to think about is that even a pollinator garden in your home landscape, it's really a wildlife garden. It's attracting well more than just insects. It's sustaining birds. It's providing food for other organisms. It's just creating a diverse, healthy environment that can encourage resources for wildlife. And probably most importantly, it's doing you a lot of good as well. It gets you outside. It increases your activity, connects you and your family to nature, probably reduces your costs if you're mowing less, if you're watering less. This hits you in your wallet. You're saving money in the process. So there are many benefits to starting a wildlife or pollinator garden, definitely.
Well, we really appreciate having you on the program. How can people find out more about you and your great information in your books and guides?
So all my books are available on large retailers like Amazon and Adventure Keen, which is my publisher. And then if they are interested in following the work that I do or my lab does, they can go to the Florida Museum online. It's the floridamuseum.ufl.edu/Daniels-lab, and they can see all the projects and some of the resources that we've created and the work that we do on butterflies and other pollinating insects.
Well, Jaret, thank you so much for the time you've offered us and the education you provided us, and continue the positive work on helping pollinators be as good as they can be.
Oh, thank you for having me tonight.
Absolutely.